Hi, everybody. I'm really excited about this. This is my first time really talking about it in this capacity. This whole thing came to me in what I think of as my my sleep paralysis epiphanies. Part of my journey has been navigating sleep paralysis, which is a result of PTSD. And at first it was very scary because I couldn't break out of my sleep. And I was fully awake and lucid in my dream. And I knew I was dreaming and I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't. I couldn't even wiggle my toe. And so I didn't know if I was dead or if I was in a coma or having a stroke or what. And it started happening around trigger days, birthdays and days of passing and things like that, holidays. And I started to realize after a while, after a few times, that it was my body's way of protecting me from waking world triggers. And I started researching um, sleep paralysis, but also this vision that came to me while I was in that state. And it was equating the grief journey universally. Of course, mine is specifically regarding peregrines or grieving parents, which I am, and so I started researching about, what does this mean? Because this vision came to me complete. 13 dimensions of grieving. And I thought, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in. And my first thought was to do a video series, which I'm still working on, actually. I'm working with an intern from an arts college in Cincinnati, Ohio. And she's going to be animating each dimension for me. And so I'm working on that, and I'm working on an audiobook as well. But I decided to put it out there as a book and a workbook because I know that a lot of people are feeling lost. A lot of people are not sure about how to navigate their grief path. And everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different background, different culture. And so, how do we meet this universally? And what I know as I've been studying for many years, because I'm a science nerd, quantum mechanics and quantum physics, which is interchangeable, it started to become clear to me that that's what this was addressing. And the question came up for me, is death actually a thing? Or are we under an illusion? And that's a big question for all of us. Whether it's a partner, a child, a pet, someone close to us, a friend or a partner, a family. Um, and so that was the beginning of this journey for me in sort of trying to put it in language that was universally sort of understandable. Because when we start thinking of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, me being a science nerd, I know exactly what that means, but a lot of people don't. This may be the first time they're meeting this concept, especially when it comes to grief. And I did my homework, I looked around. Nobody is talking about the grief journey in terms of the science of it and specifically quantum physics. So what does quantum mean? A quantum is the smallest unit of a phenomenon. For example, a quantum of light is a photon, and a quantum of electricity is an electron. Think back to your physics class. Quantum comes from Latin, meaning an amount or how much. If something is quantifiable, then it can be measured. And that's the foundation of the science of quantum mechanics or quantum physics. Right? How many of us have asked, how much can I bear? How much can I take? How can I handle this? Right? So when we look at our grief journey, we're looking at the quantity of it, right? It's overwhelming. So quantum mechanics and quantum physics is the study of how tiny particles and waves can act and interact in strange and unpredictable ways. So if we're thinking in terms of quantum, and when I refer to the concept of quantum grief, think of it as unpredictability, because grief itself is unpredictable, isn't it? You don't know how you're going to feel from one day to the next. You may have a sense of it, and you may have a sense of your connection to your loved one or your child, right? Your partner. But it's strange. It's not something that is taught or talked about. And so to look at it through this lens, I think, can be very, very helpful. Part of this concept of quantum physics is quantum entanglement, which is the idea that two particles can be linked together even when they're separated by a great distance. This means that if we measure the state of one particle, say you or me, we will instantly know the state of the other particle, no matter how far apart they are in space or time. The connection between us and our loved ones also transcends space and time. Quantum entanglement suggests that this connection may be stronger than anything that can be explained by science. So even though there is a science that has recognized this is not a hypothesis, this has been measured, this has been proven that there are two particles interact, all particles, everything that the universe is made up of is interconnected, interacts with one another. What does that mean for death? Right? Because if we recognize that death is just a different state of being than the physical, and if we have all felt the connection to our loved ones, doesn't that transcend everything? That connection will always be there. And so that's the question that arose in me. And what does quantum physics have to do with grief? Like quantum physics, grief can be uncertain and chaotic, unpredictable. Observing our emotions mindfully can help bring clarity and direction, just the way the science looks at those particles, looks at those, smaller than subatomic particles. This is the tiny stuff. This isn't the big picture stuff. This is the inner picture stuff, the stuff that atoms are made of. Visualizing grief feelings as waves or particles can provide new insights. Creating calm moments amidst the uncertainty is essential. And I think we're all finding that. I think From Grief to Hope is one of those calm moments that we're able to find once a week. Do you all feel that way? Walking in nature is another way to connect. Bonds with loved ones can persist like quantum connections. I believe that there is one frequency, and that frequency is love. Trust is the energy that is the source of that frequency. Love can't even exist without trust, whether it's between two people, whether it's in a work environment. If I trust you, you can say anything to me. If I don't trust you, you can't say anything to me, right? And so trust that process. Trust yourself, because we're all sitting here having survived this. We are in the process of surviving this, and that's for the rest of our lives. So trust it, and trust yourself that you can get through this. Dimension Zero, the Big Bang. That's the first chapter of the book. I didn't start with chapter 1. I started with Dimension Zero, because that is what science has determined at the moment of the Big Bang. You all know what the Big Bang is, right? That's what we know so far that happened, that moment where the universe exploded into being. It was pure and utter chaos, and nobody knows what was there before. Was there something there before? How did that happen? We don't know. Science does not know. And just like we are in that state of unknowing, that first moment when our loved one passes, the first moment afterwards, to me, it's like the Big Bang. The universe has exploded. What was before will never be again. You will never be the same as you were before the Big Bang that happened to you. Like the fuzzy quantum realm before matter takes clear shape, just like the moments after the Big Bang. Imagine that. Go into your mind's eye and imagine the Big Bang. Has any of you imagined it before? I think we all have. As human beings, we have that innate sense of wonder and curiosity about where do we come from? How did we manifest? How did we get to this point after billions of years? There was something there. There was something that happened. And we know because of the expansion of the universe that there was an event. And that is what quantum physics calls the Big Bang. Now think back to the moment where you became aware that your loved one was no longer in the physical. Is that not exactly the same thing? We were in a state, a particular state, not good, not bad. It was what it was. But then everything changed. Nothing has shape. Not even your feelings. We're numb. We're in shock. This shock wave, imagine when everything exploded out into the universe and it's still moving. It's still going farther and farther and farther, millions of miles an hour. So in the workbook, I take you through a series of reflections and affirmations, and also some creative exercises, which I'm not going to go over here because we're unlimited time. And I don't think we have time to go through every one of these questions. I do want to hold space for any questions that come up, but let's just go through these questions as a meditation. Okay. How has your experience impacted your sense of life and self? Your Big Bang. It's changed everything. And it continues to change. It continues to grow outward. Which core beliefs now feel less certain? I know even in this group, we've talked about how our faith has been shaken. Questions come up that we never even considered before. Imagine your emotions as waves or particles in a quantum sea of possibilities. What insights arise from this visualization? And again, this is part of the journal. This is part of the workbook. So this is work that you can do to personalize your reflections. Yeah. Consider how your bond with your loved one could resemble quantum connections like entanglement. What links still feel tangible? That's a really big question. That's a really big reflection, no matter where you are on your journey. We are always thinking about how are we still connected? Because we all feel it. We don't understand it, but we feel those moments of connection. What is that about? Right? And when we think of it in terms of that quantum entanglement, that bond is there forever. That has not changed. This is why I avoid the word loss, because I don't feel like I've lost that connection. That connection has, if anything, it's deepened. It's deepened and expanded in the same moment. So here are the affirmations that came in my epiphany for this weird Big Bang shock dimension zero. I flow with grief's waves, softening into the changes. Uncertainty contains possibilities. I observe my emotions with gentle quantum curiosity. And again, when I use the word quantum here, it's embracing the unpredictable. When you're in your dimension zero, There's nothing to do but be in it. You don't even know how to feel yet. Dimension one, the emotional pathway. The one-dimensional nature of initial mourning is like a single path traversed step by step. It's one-dimensional. It's the canvas. It's like if you're a painter or if you're going to draw a picture, you put the paper down on the table. It's the flat surface. Our emotions become the coordinates on this grief map, shaping our perceptions. By walking the path with courage, we lay the groundwork for transformation ahead. So dimension one is all about that one-dimensional. It's after that shock has moved on a bit, and we start to settle into our feelings. We start to be able to feel about it and explore those feelings. That is laying the foundation for the rest of your grief journey. What are the raw emotions that you encounter as you navigate the first dimension of grief? How do these emotions shape your experience of grief? What courage do you need to confront the depths of your sorrow? These are all questions that we need to be asking ourselves when we are moving out of shock and into our mourning period. To me, there's a difference between mourning and grieving. Mourning is a temporary state, and it's a passive state. You can do nothing with it but sit in it and be in it. You can't function when you're in mourning, and no one expects you to. Culturally, around the world, there's a mourning period where if you have experienced the passing of a loved one, people are holding you in your mourning period. Grief, on the other hand, is active and it's permanent state. There's a very thin membrane between the two, and we'll get to that. When you pass through that membrane from mourning into grieving, you feel it. Nobody can tell you when that's going to happen. And you may bounce back and forth between dimensions before you really feel that you've crossed into your grieving. There's nothing linear about this. These dimensions are not, you go through one, there are no stages of grief. You move fluidly between them. And this first dimension is the simplicity of that canvas. I embrace the simplicity of my emotions, recognizing them as foundational forces that propel me forward along the linear path of coping with the unthinkable. And this is one of the things that I love about quantum mechanics, is that it can be both nonlinear and linear in the same moment. We experience it as linear because we've been taught that there's a timeline to life. There's a calendar. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, January, February, March, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. This is what has been drummed into us from day one. So we experience things in a linear way. But beyond that space, it's not linear at all. And we move fluidly through them. I honor the first dimension of grief and its profound significance. It's the foundation of everything. Within the simplicity of emotions lies the power to navigate my unique journey with strength, resilience, and a profound connection to my child's eternal essence. Now, by my child, that could mean your child who's passed, or it could mean your inner child. Because your inner child was not taught the skills to meet this. You see? Dimension two, the depths. Dimension two introduces perspective and depth of bereavement. Like painting on a canvas, we use creative expressions to map the multidimensional landscape. So imagine that blank canvas, and you're there You're now sort of in your body again, in a way. You're starting to look around for the tools to paint your journey on this canvas. You're laying that paint onto that one-dimensional surface, making it two-dimensional. If you look at it under a microscope, you can see that there's the foundation, and then the paint is laying on top of that blank canvas. So that adds depth. What are the layers of your grief that you have discovered in the second dimension? How have you found solace in the connections that you've forged with others? That could be family, that could be friends, that could be groups, community. And what patterns start to emerge in your grief journey? And how, if at all, have you expressed your grief creatively? I think that's a very important part of this journey, is finding ways of creatively expressing where you are on your path. And that could be writing poetry, that could be drawing or painting, that could be writing lyrics to a song, or finding a song that you resonate with. Anything that's creative, it could be gardening. This is the stage where we start to become creative in our grief. We have the capacity now because we've moved through the shock. We've moved through that, getting beyond the numbness and trying to figure out where I am now. And now we're in a different dimension. I embrace the depths of my grief, recognizing that they are a part of my journey. Acceptance is the first step. I don't believe that there's any healing from grief, but the journey itself can be healing. There's no end game. It's a perpetual state of healing something that can't be healed, which is a big conundrum. I find solace in the connections I forge with others, honoring the eternal essence of my loved one. So that is your support circle. That's this group. That's your family, your circle of friends, anyone who is there holding you through this. They're aware of what happened. They're supporting you. They're bringing you food. They're bringing you comfort. And so you are talking about your loved one with them. And that brings them their eternal essence to the fore. That's always there. I discover profound insights and connections that illuminate my path forward. Right now, it's still, you're still at the epicenter. And so that first circle around you, this is before you really reach out to find a broader community. This is your inner circle. Dimension 3, expanding horizons. In the third dimension, we unveil a wider world, inviting a broadened perspective. We discover possibility and meaning by exploring new environments and connections. Just as 3D adds depth to vision, we can perceive grief's multidimensional nature more wholly and become aware of those around us who are also in mourning. So it's in this dimension 3 that we expand, we widen our circle. We start looking for other people who are in a similar place as we are. We start looking for groups. We start considering that there are other people around us who are also grieving. So when you think of 3D, 3 dimensions, you think not only of that depth, but also the width, the breadth of your vision. That's what brings it. And this is what's preparing us to move from mourning into grieving. This is the movement. This is the membrane that moves us from that 2D world. Remember the old Disney cartoons were all 2D? And then all of a sudden, everything was 3D. The Pixar took over and everything's 3-dimensional. It's kind of like that. That's the way I experience anyway. How has your perception of grief expanded as you have delved into this third dimension? What hidden strengths have you unearthed as you have explored the vastness of your grief landscape? See, this is the point where we start thinking about the future. How am I going to get through this? How am I going to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? That's when you start considering the breadth of your landscape. How have you found meaning within the depth and breadth of your experience? This is a tough one because everyone has a particular story, and some experiences can seem meaningless. But it's us that can apply the meaning. We have the power to apply meaning to this experience. And it's in this third dimension when you're moving through, when you start movement, you start in your imagination moving through and into your grieving state from your mourning, is when you are able to do that, to apply meaning to your experience. Cameron used to say, you know, we've heard of a lot of kids who had passed for brain cancer, and they didn't die in vain, because now we know more about brain cancer, pediatric brain cancer, because they went through the hardship of it. So even he was able to apply meaning to it. The doctors know more because we went through it. We're releasing stigmas that culture and society have against the way people go. And that's how we apply meaning. I embrace the depth and breadth of my grief, recognizing that it is a multi-dimensional landscape. That's a big recognition. I find strength in the interconnectedness of my experiences and the support of my fellow grief walkers. I discover new perspectives and hidden strengths as I navigate the vastness of my grief journey. Any questions so far, or is it fairly clear? Making sense? There's a lot more, it goes into much more depth in the book. This is just an introduction, but as things come up, feel free to raise your hand and ask questions. Dimension 4, unraveling temporal threads. What is temporal? It means time. The fourth dimension is the dimension of time. That's where time lives. It reveals time's tapestry, inviting reflection on memories, meaning, and the enduring bonds we share with our departed loved ones. Here, we honor legacies, celebrate impactful moments, and find interconnectedness across past, present, and future. From a quantum mechanics perspective, they all exist at the same moment. It's in this dimension 4, and again, we're moving back and forth and up and down through these dimensions. It's in this dimension 4 where you really start to solidify those memories that have meaning for you and be able to celebrate the lives of your loved ones, shifting out of the focus on their passing. That's part of adding meaning, is really focusing on the blessing of their life, that they were here and we remember them. We speak their names. And then it becomes a practice. We find rituals, we find meaningful ways to remember them and allow others to remember them as well. Since your Big Bang, how has your perception of time changed? I know we all feel it. I don't know that we all reflect on it or really think about how our perception of time has changed. What cherished memories have you revisited? And again, cherished memories. We've moved beyond those darker first dimensions where we're remembering the event. And a lot of people get caught in that vortex, replaying the event over and over and over. And it's really hard to break out of that vortex. But when we reach this dimension where we are living in that sense of how time has changed for us, our perception of time has changed, then we can start focusing on those cherished moments, those moments of joy, those moments that make us giggle. How has the legacy of your child impacted your vision of the future or your loved one? In other words, how can we invite them in to allow them to work through us in how we meet the world? How do we channel the essence, the eternal essence of our loved ones into who we are now? We're not who we were before. We're somebody completely different now. How do we use that energy, that frequency that represents them in the way that we meet the world and allow the world to get to know them through us? What creative expressions have you used to capture the essence of time in your grief journey? It's another tool. We are inherently creative beings. When I came back to the States after living abroad my whole childhood, I heard for the first time somebody say to me, I don't have a creative bone in my body. It's like, what? How did that go viral? Every bone in your body is creative, literally and figuratively. It reforms. Every cell in your body reforms every what, 7 years? Is that it? It remakes itself. We are creative. We are creation. So apply it here and apply it alongside the concept of time and your perception of time, which is your own. They've already proven that time is different for every individual, depending on how fast you're moving and the effect of gravity on you. And that could be figurative gravity. We all perceive time differently. Now here, bring it into focus. I embrace the fluidity of time, honoring the past, living fully in the present, and envisioning a future shaped by love. Because that's what our loved ones represent, is love. You hear it all the time in these circles that grief is love without a place to go, or whatever that saying is, right? It's all about love. It's all about love. So let that love shape your future, right? You've heard me in this group before say, imagine the kind of grief walker you want to be a week from now, a year from now, 5, 10, 20 years from now. It has to start with the imagination. I find solace in the power of remembrance, knowing that my connection to my loved one transcends time and space. You have to know it. Acceptance is huge. You know that the love that you have for your child, your spouse, your partner transcends time and space. Start there. Let that be the fuel in your tank. I harness the power of time to cultivate personal growth and honor my loved one's legacy. Dimension 5, interconnected realms. The fifth dimension, I don't mean the musical group, reveals the web of unity beneath life's diversity. Here we tap into the power of shared stories, ritual, and support, unveiling the interconnectivity of all things. Recognizing our shared struggles can help us feel less alone on the journey. When I think of the fifth dimension and the fourth dimension, which represents time, it's like I'm sitting across the room, and on the other side of the room, there's a door. And from where I'm sitting across the room, I can imagine moving through time and space to the door. I know it'll take me 10 seconds or less to get from point A to point B. It's all in my imagination. Dimension 5 is where you actually get up and move through time and space to the door. You don't know what's on the other side of the door. You're not even there yet. Here we walk. Here we step back out into the world as a whole person, having gotten to this point in the journey. And that's when we start building community again. That's when we start working again. That's when we start finding our way and connecting with people around us. Maybe they're grief walkers, maybe not. I think all human beings are to one degree or another. How do we find that frequency, see that frequency in one another, recognize it in one another? It's a feeling. It's a sense. We have more than 5 senses. What connections or common threads do you notice between your story and those of others? We start to sense that commonality. We start to listen to other people's stories and say, oh, I get it. I understand. Maybe my journey was a little bit different, but there are common threads there. And then how can you deepen your connection with your grief community? This is one way that I do it, that I am doing it. One way was to start the Lost Travelers Club, to say, hey, this is the club that nobody should belong to, but we're here. We might as well have a club and step back out into the world amongst people who get it and understand. Estrella, same thing with From Grief to Hope. This is your grief community, one that you've created because you got to the 5th dimension. You walked to the door. That takes a lot of courage to get up off the sofa when you're feeling like a lump and you don't feel motivated. You don't feel, you're sitting in your imagination, but you haven't moved yet out into your life. This is a hugely courageous move. This dimension is to actually cross the room and stand at the door, not knowing what's on the other side, but knowing that you can bring something. What rituals or ceremonies might help you feel more connected to your loved one's eternal essence? This is another part of getting up and moving and being actionable. For me, I created a shrine that has my son's ashes, his urn, little knickknacks and things, flowers or stones or sticks, things that I bring into my home from the natural world. So I have the natural world in my home as well as outside. This is an active, participatory thing. You could do it alone. You could do it with your family. If you have other children, it's a great way to keep them interconnected with their sibling. Or if you have children who lost their father, your partner, this is another way to include them in keeping that eternal essence alive. How can you visualize your journey as part of a larger tapestry of interconnected experiences? Again, this is one thing that quantum physics has proven, is that we are all connected. Everything in the universe, in the known universe, in the unknown universe, all the planets, all the stars, all the comets, all the black holes, everything is made of the same stuff we are. We are literally stardust. Now what? When I go outside, when I literally walk across the room and out the door and I look up at the starry sky, I don't feel distance. I feel connection. And that's what this dimension represents, is standing at that doorway about to receive that gift. I embrace the interconnectedness of all beings and the profound impact my loved one continues to have on my life. And again, it's up to you to ascribe meaning to it. It can be a drag. It can hold you down in the mud, or that profound impact can lift you up off the sofa and push you toward the door. I find strength and solace in the understanding and empathy of fellow grief walkers. Now, we all know the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? Sympathy is, oh, I know just how you feel. Well, my parakeet died 2 months ago. Empathy is not having to say anything. It's a look. It's a touch on the arm. It's somebody saying, I get it. I hear you. I see you. It's holding space. I am one thread in a vast web of grief and healing, and I am not alone on this path. Feels that way sometimes, but like death, that's an illusion, and it's informed by our faith. It's informed by our biographies, our relationships with our family and friends. And this is a way to meditate on that. That even if you're out alone in the countryside and you're looking up at the stars, you're not alone, because you are connected to everything and everything is connected to you. You're just one thread in a vast tapestry. That's a beautiful image for me. I love that. I really resonate with that. Dimension 6, time and transcendence. So the sixth dimension interweaves time and timelessness. That's another beauty about quantum physics, is that time and timelessness can coexist in the same moment. Light, there's nothing faster than the speed of light that we know. That's the fastest anything can go, is the speed of light. That's what we know. And light is at the same time a wave and a particle. What does that mean for us? When we talk about frequency, it's both wave and particle. It's time and timelessness. Here we tap into the enduring, boundless nature of love and spirit, inviting us to immerse ourselves in the eternal essence of our loved ones and acknowledge our internal bonds. Now, this is for me the dimension that's on the other side of the door. This is the one that we don't know much about. It's the mystery. This is the moving through the door, not knowing what's on the other side and taking the risk to meet it. It could be something beautiful. It could be something horrible. But you've got to open the door and move through it. That's the sixth dimension, is the moving through that portal. In what ways does your sense of time and space feel altered or unpredictable in your grief journey? Have any meditative or metaphysical practices provided a sense of transcending time? If you meditate, if you pray, if you talk to a clairvoyant, start to notice your relationship with time in those moments. How might you envision your bond with your loved one using quantum ideas like entanglement across space and time? Start to imagine you as a particle, them as a particle. connected forever, bonded. Every word that you utter, every action that you make, every thought that you think is connected to them. And likewise, that's when we start to pick up on messages that they send to us. And it's a feeling. It's a feeling that they're okay. It's a feeling that, hey, maybe you want to think about going this direction, mom. Imagine how the motions of quantum particles might reflect timelessness. Do any insights emerge? That in and of itself is a meditation, isn't it? And hopefully, when we meditate or pray, we come out of that state of timelessness with new information. Be open, stay open to it, stay open to what's on the other side of that door. The door is a boundary. Now you get to break through. Love's light transcends all boundaries. I trust in my everlasting bonds. And that, for me, includes all my ancestors. My son is now my ancestor. He is a blood relative who has preceded me in passing. He is my ancestor. And so I include Cameron in all of my ancestors. And I have everlasting bonds with all of them, which means basically all of humanity, because we know that we're all connected. We know we all share DNA. We share DNA with a banana. All of life is connected. Start there, I say. Within me, an eternal flame burns brightly. Think of the stars, that you are stardust. Burn like a star. Just don't burn out. Going to wrap it up with Dimension 7, the harmonic symphony. In the seventh dimension, we open ourselves to diverse perspectives on the grief journey, exploring how embracing many viewpoints allows empathy and understanding to blossom. We recognize each person's path is unique, shaped by their experiences, beliefs, and background. This is when we step out of ourselves and our limited perceptions, our limited experiences, and start to notice around the world how other people are grieving, how other people handle this. For me, it was an early recognition that children have been passing since the beginning of humanity. This is nothing new. I'm not special. I never asked the question, why me? Why not me? And every culture has a different way of handling it, of coping with it. Start researching, start looking. Maybe there's inspiration. Maybe there's something that you can do, a ritual. I know in Peru, they go into the graveyards and send up giant kites up into the sky, and they bring them down. They bring their ancestors, their loved ones down like an elevator, and they have a big party in the graveyard, big picnic, great food and dancing and music. And that's so unique to that culture. But that's something that I love to do. Every time I think of going out and flying a kite, I think it's an elevator. I could bring Cameron down and we could enjoy. We used to fly kites all the time. How has learning about different grieving experiences from other backgrounds than yours expanded your perspective? What new insights did you gain? What cultural factors influence your own grief journey? We have people in this group from all over the world. And how can you share this perspective with others? This is part of that stepping out into the world, that sixth dimension courage of stepping out, carrying out into the world what lives in you telling your story. How has your culture influenced the way that you are grieving? And share it with others. Think of a time that you felt truly heard and understood. What were the conditions that made that possible? Because by reflecting on that, you can then be very, very aware of when you're providing true hearing and understanding for others. What steps can you take to create spaces for open sharing and deep listening? Estrella doesn't have to answer that because we're all here. You take inspiration from that. When I started the Peregrine DadCast, this is a way for men to talk about their grief journey publicly because there's such a stigma. How can you create a space for other people to feel safe, to share, and to be heard? How could you support someone whose grief differs from your own? This is something that Estrella and I talk about all the time, because in these mixed groups, everybody has a different story. There may be some common threads in the tapestry, but no two are the same. How do you navigate that in your own experience? And what questions could you ask to understand better their experience? I welcome new perspectives on the grief path as an affirmation. In diversity, I find deeper understanding. I open my heart to hear each unique voice. You have a symphony, and it would not be the same without every instrument, without every string. Look at it as a symphony, that every person, every grief journey is its own separate instrument, and together it can create harmony. This quote I came across a few months ago, and it really stood out to me in this bigger conversation about quantum grief. When you realize that eternity is right here now, that it is within your possibility to experience the eternity of your own truth and being, then you grasp the following: that which you are was never born and will never die. Joseph Campbell. That goes for you, that goes for your kids, that goes for your partners and your parents and your pets. That's what I love about quantum physics, is that it validates that that frequency, that energy, that love and trust cannot be created and it cannot be destroyed. It just resonates at different intensities at different times in our life. And this isn't to say that it's not a horrible experience to go through this. This is you're giving birth to a new person. That's you. And you all know that birth is not an easy process. And it's not pain-free. We have to go through this. But to be able to look at it, hopefully, as different dimensions of intensity, rather than 5 stages that you have to box yourself into. That you can honor that breath, that inhale and the exhale that is the grief journey.